Good morning. This weekend, Tanya is hosting a group run over at Sam Houston Jones Park, and we thought it'd be a good idea to do a video to answer some basic questions on trail running if you've never run on trails before. Unfortunately, I won't be able to be there this weekend because of a thing with my kid, but I hope to be there in following weekends after that. I'm usually out there. Like I said, we thought it'd be a good idea though to put in some answer some basic questions people have usually whenever they start, like how do you run on trails, that kind of thing. So we just make a video with the questions I usually get and overall trail runners get whenever people are like, I'd like to run on trails, but questions. So starting with the most common, will I trip and fall? Probably. um it's one of those things where I usually answer with the answer probably yes, probably no. um it's hard to say because probably no, because usually, especially if you're new to trail running, you're watching a lot more closely, you're being a lot more careful, you pay attention to all the roots and stuff like that on the ground, the tripping hazards. I always like to say I trip more often on concrete sidewalks than I ever do on trails. Um, so it's one of those you're going to be paying attention. Though a couple of tips to kind of avoid tripping. First off, slow down. If you're cruising at a 9-minute mile pace on the sidewalk, do a 10 or 11. Take your time, especially if you're new. It's kind of a new skill set. You're working some different muscles while you're running. So you're working some different muscles while you're running on a trail. So it's a little bit different. So take your time. Take smaller steps. When you're running, don't take the longer stride. Take a shorter stride and a slower pace just to kind of get used to the new terrain. I'm looking down at my notes because I couldn't remember everything. But my favorite, the best advice I ever got for trail running was to not look straight down, but not look real far away. Look about 3 to 4 feet ahead of you while you're running, because that's enough time to gauge, okay, there's an obstacle, I'm gonna move around it. And if it's a big obstacle, well, then you can pay more attention to it. But if it's way off in the distance, you're gonna have too much time and you're not gonna be paying attention to the immediate problems that are in front of you, and you're gonna miss. There's an old joke with trail runners where, there's a meme where it's like, here's the obstacle you think you're gonna trip on, and it's a big gnarly root with a hand sticking out of the ground to grab your ankle. And then here's what you're actually going to trip on, is the tiniest little thing you didn't see because you were looking 20 feet ahead of you. If you're looking 3 feet ahead of you, you're going to see the tiny thing you're going to trip on, that tiny little stick that surprisingly will put you on your butt. I'm going to flip it around though, and also probably yes, you might fall. You might trip and fall. Now, don't panic. I have had 3 major injuries from tripping and falling. All 3 of them have been on sidewalks. I separated my acromioclavicular joint, my collarbone. I sprained that pretty hard falling on a sidewalk in Washington, D.C. I scraped the hell out of my shin one time just running on the same route I do every day. And then one time I actually ran into a tree, but not in the woods, because I was running and it was pitch black dark and I couldn't see. Somebody chopped down a tree and put it on the shoulder of the road so the truck can take it away. And because it was so dark, I didn't see that there was a tree magically appearing out of nowhere, and I ran smack into the tree. That one was stupid. On the trail, the dirt and the mud especially, I love, like, falling in dirt is really soft. You're gonna bam, but it's not gonna be that hard of a bam because you're gonna hit dirt and it forgives way better than concrete. And then mud is even way better because mud is just this big wet soft cushion that you'll fall on and you'll get up and you go, you'll be nasty covered in mud, but on the other hand, you're not gonna hurt anything. Plus, you look really cool covered, in dirt and grime. Some of my best racing bibs that I've kept are from these big muddy races where the bib looks like I've been through a battle. It looks really cool. So falling is not the worst thing in the world. Speaking of mud, though, I'm going to throw it around too. It's probably not going to be an issue this weekend, but it's supposed to rain Friday, so there might be some mud. I always tell people, don't waste energy running around puddles unless it's the teeniest, tiniest puddle. If you have to go halfway into the woods to get around a puddle, you're doing a couple of things at once. A, you're wasting a lot of time and energy, tramping through some woods just to avoid getting your feet wet. And then also, like, trails are made to naturally guide like stuff like erosion and water. So by going around the trail and into the woods, you're actually creating a disruption to that flow, and you're kind of screwing up erosion. You're either going to make the trail wider than it has to be and screw that up, or you might actually like kill some plants that are keeping the trail maintained and hemmed in. It actually makes it harder for the people who maintain trails and for the park to keep the trails clean and civilized, for lack of a better term. Cultivated is a good word. It makes the job harder for the people who maintain the trails. So it's actually better if you just go ahead and embrace your inner child and just splash right into the puddle. Just jump right in and keep on running. It's fun. It's a lot of fun to do that. But B, also, you're going to be a lot nicer on the trails, and you're going to be not wasting that time trying to negotiate around. Also, shoes. There are something called trail shoes versus street shoes. And trail shoes, the main difference is two things. One is these little cleats at the bottom. I don't know how well you can see this. But these are great in a lot of different terrains because they actually grip the ground and give you a lot better traction. Not as aggressive as soccer cleats, but definitely give you that level of traction that makes it easier to run on. Plus, they also drain really easy. So they have these little holes in them. So whenever you're running, the water leaks out a lot easier. So you don't have to run in wet shoes as long. And then some even, the type, I have actually a pair that have what's called a rock plate, which is this little plastic insulator through there. So if you're running through like Arkansas or somewhere the rocks are really aggressive, it adds a little bit of protection for your feet. So if you're pounding on these little gravel rocks, it makes it a lot more comfortable. Anyway, if you are new to trail running, though, you do not have to go out and buy these types of shoes. Street shoes, especially in Sam Houston Jones Park, street shoes are just fine. They're not going to, the terrain isn't that aggressive, so you'll be just fine just wearing street shoes. And then over time, if you fall in love with trail running, you want to do more and more and more, then you go ahead and make that purchase of getting another pair of shoes on top of the shoes you already own, to add to the collection of shoes you got, to do more and more trail running, that kind of thing. They are an advantage. They are very helpful for trail running, but for your first couple of trail runs, you don't need them. It's fine to just run. Though I would say if you are really proud of how pretty your shoes look, like these are the pretty shoes I own, don't wear them trail running because they're going to get nasty. They're going to get muddy. They're going to get dirty. They're going to get dusty. I mean, look at these things. These are black shoes. Except they're not. This is just on dry trail. This is just all the dust that accumulates. And then my other shoes are even grosser. Like these. These are blue, but they're not. And then look how tore up they are on the insides. Like these have been through a lot of mess, through a lot of muddy trails. So don't wear your pretty shoes. These are going to get tore up pretty nasty. Finally, my biggest advice whenever you're trail running, the biggest advantage to trail running is you are in a very pretty landscape. The Appalachian Trail, some people call it the cathedral, just because it feels holy. It feels, you have the trees, you're surrounded by life and nature, and sometimes when you're running on a road, you're going for that negative split. You're going for, I'm going to maintain this 9-minute mile pace. I always say, like, your long run, the run where pace really doesn't matter, you're just going for miles, that should be done on trails, because it doesn't matter what your pace is. And as a result, it's okay to take a moment. You run across a bunch of deer and you're like, oh my God, look at the deer. Let's stare at the deer for a little bit. There's been plenty of times where I've literally gotten to a point on a trail where I have to just be dumbstruck and just sit there and appreciate the view. Or I have to take a moment and enjoy that moment of peace that comes with just being in nature. And that's okay. Don't feel pressured or hurried to maintain a 9-minute mile pace or whatever you're trying to achieve. Run and feel and enjoy nature. I have a very good friend of mine who she stops every, like, she's annoying to run with because she runs like every 20 feet. She stops and takes pictures of everything, and they're the best pictures. Like, they are some of the most gorgeous pictures you'll ever see because she is inspired by all the landscape, and it's just so much worth it for her to stop and take pictures of everything. And I take that back. She's not annoying to run with. She's probably one of the best people to run with. But yeah, she enjoys that. And it's very much the same thing where I've totally stopped, like the Great Smoky Mountains. I totally stopped and sat on the side of a cliff for like an hour just enjoying the view. I was doing a race one time in, I think it was Alabama. And it's so far away from everything. It was in the middle of the night, and we stopped at the top of a peak, and I just stared at all the stars. I've never seen that many stars before. That's what trail running ultimately brings more than anything else, is that connection with nature that you just don't, you realize you don't get anymore. Living like the way we do, modern society kind of thing, you don't get that connection with nature. And trail running, the biggest appeal for me is you get a little bit of that piece back, where you just get to be in nature, be a part of nature, and enjoy that connection again. So take time to do that. So if there are any other questions, you can always comment underneath and we'll answer that as quick as we can, or you can ask me or Tanya through Facebook. And I hope you enjoy the trails. These are the trails that we're going to be doing a race on, No Man's Land, October 2024. So check them out. If you really enjoy them and you want to suffer a little on them, the race would be perfect for them. If you have any questions, shoot us. Otherwise, hope to run with you soon.